For the very much of you who have gone through a discard, you very much remember the ending of this partnership and entanglement. And for some reason, you had a lot of questions. You asked the friends, you watched a lot of content, you read a lot of books. Through the mourning process, you were as well asking a lot of questions because you somehow needed closure. And I can guarantee you that the narcissists, they have already done this thing for a very long period of time. They have got this pattern. They know how they've already been living, and they have done this thing for so many people and victims before you. And at some point in time, people, beautiful souls, you're going to snap. You're going to wake up. You're going to finally realize you have been dealing with abuse. And the very moment the empath snaps and they realize they have been dealing with narcissism for this matter, that is the moment they're going to decide to shut the doors and to close the gates. The very moment you take that decision, people, the narcissist, they will know this. They will know for some reason you're not coming back and you're gone forever. And that is exactly when reality is going to kick in for the narcissist. And believe me or not, people, you may be wondering what is then going to happen with the narcissists. How are they going to react to this? How are they going to behave? And what are they going to do with this? In this video, I'm going to let you know exactly what will happen when the reality kicks in for the narcissists, when they realize that actually they have really lost the empath. Let's dive in a bit. I'm going to let you know what is going to happen next. Let's do this. So good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to viewers from all walks of life. This is Nikymus, and I welcome you to the channel of truth, enlightenment, freedom, and the channel of breaking empaths free. If it's your first time here and narcissism resonates with you, I encourage you to join us. If you haven't already, like our page, share with the friends, subscribe. And for those who have always been with me, you are welcome back, and I thank you for your love and support. So basically, as the narcissist discards you, they very quickly move in with somebody else. Now that person, eventually you have to understand that person has already been in the background. It's just because you are the only one who wasn't kept in the loop. But that person has already, the new supply I'm talking about, they have already been playing in the background. So as soon as you step out of there, this card has happened, they're going to slide in very quickly with the new supply. But I can guarantee you, people, the narcissist, for them this is about, it's like a game. They're trying to play a game because this is a game they've been playing for so many years. And the only reason why they have stayed with you for a very long period of time, that is because you are the only person who could actually understand them and actually stand up for them, for that matter. So that's why you see most of the empaths, they have ended up in very long relationships with the narcissist. As soon as the fuel or the supply you can offer, you have run out of supply and fuel, that is the moment they discard you, they're moving to somebody else, and eventually they're still sneaking in, they're still actually keeping a tag on you. They want to know actually what exactly is going on with you. Because usually at the discard, most of the empaths, they have not yet awakened. And the narcissists, they know you haven't yet awakened and you haven't yet figured them out. So they hope at some point in time, they are going to slide back in before actually you awaken. Because the very moment they want to slide back in, because they are trying to pull you back, to suck you back in and put you back to sleep, restart the abuse, discard you. So this thing has been going on for years. But you have to understand something, people. The narcissist knows your value. They do not discard you because they don't understand who you are. They practically, actually, they know your worth and they know your value. But it's just because at the moment of the discard, there is nothing more to offer. So that's why they decide to discard the empath. But they really know your value. And believe me or not, the new supply, the narcissist usually is trying to figure out what exactly is going to happen with the new supply. How are they going to behave in this situation? How are things going to unfold as they get along with the new supply? So most of the cases, they're not even sure of what is going to happen next. So what happens is, during the moment they're tagging on you, they're keeping a tag on you, most of the empaths, like I've said, they have awakened. They have finally figured out that they have actually been dealing with abuse. And that is exactly when you're going to start cutting the cords. And by cutting the cords, what I mean, you're going to stop engaging in phone calls, you're going to stop engaging in checking them up, you're going to stop actually even relating, doing anything what is relating to them, you're going to actually cut the cords and shut the gates. And most of the cases, believe me, people, this is where the narcissist will actually understand that you're actually emotionally disconnecting from them, even sometimes on a permanent basis. They will feel this spiritually. They will know the empath is leaving, or even sometimes the empath has left. What will happen is, people, this is exactly, I'm talking about this because I've seen it myself. This is exactly how the narcissist is going to understand that actually this discard, unlike all the discards they have had before, this is the discard actually that has brought them to the reality of the whole situation. And that is when actually the narcissist is going to run into the panic mode. So basically what will happen is the new supply, that is the moment the new supply is going to have the worst of the narcissist. Should the narcissist know that one of the sources of supply before, the empath has snapped and the empath has awakened, the empath has shut the gates and cut the cords, the narcissist is going to take it very seriously. And because of that, there is a person in that picture. Now, this time we're talking about the new supply. That is exactly when the new supply is going to have the worst of the narcissist. The narcissist is going to go, number one, into rage. The new supply will never understand what exactly is going on. The narcissist will go into rage and they will start to make the narcissist, the new supply actually do those things that they have never done before. They have never even imagined that they'll ever do. That is because the narcissist, for them, they want to make sure that even then you're gone, the empath is gone. They want to make sure that actually they can still keep the moments you guys are together. They can still keep those moments close to them. And believe me or not, people, the narcissist is going to turn to the new source of supply. What are they going to do for this matter? You guys during the entanglement and that situationship with the narcissist, you used to have some favorite places like cafes, a favorite gym, or maybe sometimes there was a favorite meal you guys used to cook, or sometimes there was a favorite movie you guys used to watch. There were some of those things that you guys used to do, and the narcissists, they remember each and every single detail. And believe me or not, people, those individuals, they miss those moments. So what is going to happen in this situation? The narcissist is going to turn to the new supply, and they are going to recreate you using the new source of supply. And by this, what I mean is that the narcissist, what they're going to do, they are going to make the new supply actually look like you. They are going to make the new supply look like you, do things like you, act like you, behave like you. So they are going to recreate you in another person, which in most of the cases is impossible. It's next to impossible because you are two different individuals. Everybody has got their own style of doing things. But because those individuals, the narcissists, in their mentality, they don't understand this. They don't understand that people are different. When they realize that actually somebody is gone forever, the only thing they're left with, the only option they're left with is going back home. They're going to mourn the loss of the empath. They're going to mourn the loss of the empath for a while. And eventually, because they realize that actually there's no turning back, the empath is gone forever, there's no turning back. They are going to go back home. They are going to now start recreating the new source of supply. That is where you're going to start for the most of the victims of abuse. You have seen most of the cases whereby you are seeing those new source of supply. They're most likely driving the same car you guys used to drive. They're most likely wearing the same clothes you guys used to wear. They're most likely doing, you might have seen these things online. You may not have seen them. You might have seen them. But if you have not seen them, I'm talking to you. Believe me or not, at home, the narcissist is very seriously turning the new supply to look like you. They are recreating you into somebody else. And that is when the new supply is going to start asking a lot of questions. They're going to start wondering, why are they actually finding themselves doing some things that they don't even ever imagine they would do? You know what I mean? Because the narcissist is going to, believe me or not, during the rage, the very moment the narcissist will rage to the new source of supply, they are going to mention each and everything about you. They are going to mention everything you guys used to do, starting from the bedroom, going to the breakfast, to the places you guys used to hang out, the clothes you used to wear, the way you used to behave, the movies you used to watch, each and everything that identified you and the narcissist as a partnership. They are going to start actually mentioning these kind of things in front of the new supply. They are going to make the new supply look like you. So you do not have to be surprised when you find yourself, you may hear it from the neighbors, you may hear it from friends, you may hear it from family members or something, or relatives. You may hear actually that at some point in time, the narcissist was found with the new supply, and the new supply eventually looked like you. They would do things like you. Everything that characterized them as a person was exactly a complete reflection of you. That is because the narcissists, they know your value. They know how much value you held in that partnership. They know your value. So eventually, because they cannot have that same quality of a person, they are going to import the qualities that they remember, some of those qualities they remember about you. Like me, for example, I would get messages like, for example, there used to be a certain meal we used to cook at home. So I would get messages like, I don't remember how we used to cook this such and such a meal. Could you direct me how to do such and such a meal? Could you remind me how you used to do so and so, this and this and this, how you used to do this and this and that. So most of the things that we used to do, or things that used to actually happen in that partnership, you will find the narcissist, sometimes if they have got access to you, like in this case, for example, if you have got kids with them, because sometimes you have got some kind of easy communications with them. So they are going to be asking you a lot of things that you guys used to do. They are going to try to remember. They are trying to memorize and remember, and even sometimes register those things into the new partnership. So you may not be surprised when you find yourself, the ex-narc is calling you and they're asking you about the way you used to cook a certain meal, or sometimes the way you used to do a certain yoga practice, or sometimes the way, each and everything. There's so many things that you guys used to do, but believe it or not, people, there is so many things happening in that partnership. Most of those things, they have been imported by the narcissist. They have been imported by the narcissist into the new partnership. And believe it or not, people, behind the scenes, the narcissist is secretly making someone else look like you. They are recreating you in somebody else. But there's one thing I know for sure, is that we are all different people with different qualities. The narcissists, they don't know this, but eventually you're going to understand that people, there can always be one you. You cannot be duplicated, and nobody else can ever look like you. So you have got to be rest assured, in this partnership with the new supply, the narcissist is busy at home recreating you in somebody else. Don't be surprised when you see all these things happening, when you hear them from people, when you hear them from family members, or even sometimes neighbors, when you hear them doing some of those things that you guys used to do, you have got to know the narcissist is busy, because they are finally understood you're gone. You've completely gone, you've shut the gate, so they know that at some point in time you're never going to come back in that partnership. So what they do, they're simply going to go back home, recreate you in somebody else. That being said, guys, I would like to know in the comment section below what you think about this. If it has happened to you, if you've seen it, or maybe if you've heard it, I would like to know what has been your experience in the section below. Other than that, people, much love and blessings. I wish you the best for the rest of the week. Desmo signing out, and I'll catch you soon.